All the stories we share on this channel come directly from our subscribers, inspired by real-life experiences, ours and theirs. We publish new stories every day to entertain, reflect, and connect. Thanks for listening. Have you ever lived under the same roof as someone and still felt completely alone? That was my reality for an entire month. My name's Jason Myers. I'm 38 years old and work in commercial real estate out in Temecula, California. I've always been the kind of man who solves problems quietly. No yelling, no dramatic blow-ups. I prefer calm over chaos. But my wife, Megan, operates on a completely different wavelength. We've been married for 7 years. Like most couples, we've hit a few rocky stretches, but we always manage to find our way back to each other, until this time. And ironically, it all kicked off over something that felt trivial at first. I had to cancel dinner with her friends because a high-stakes client from Arizona needed to schedule a late Zoom call. It was a $3.2 million negotiation for a strip mall project outside Phoenix, something I couldn't just push off. I assumed Megan would understand the importance. She didn't. That night, I walked through the front door expecting some irritation, maybe a passive-aggressive comment or a cold shoulder for a few hours. But what I got was silence. No, how was the meeting? No, are you hungry? Not even a sarcastic jab. She walked past me in the hallway like I didn't even exist. And it didn't stop there. The next morning I came downstairs, no coffee waiting for me, no good morning, just her brushing by again with that same blank stare. Like I was a roommate she barely tolerated. Like someone who forgot to lock the front door. I figured it'd pass. A couple days, tops. It didn't. We still shared the same bed, but it felt more like we were inmates in a prison cell than partners. No words. No touch. No eye contact. She'd slide under the blanket, turn her back to me, and face the wall. I'd lie on my side, staring at the ceiling fan, wondering if I was being punished, or if something deeper was cracking beneath the surface. In the first week, I did what I could to fix it. I made her coffee just the way she liked it. Almond milk, 1.5 packets of Splenda. Left it on the kitchen counter. She didn't touch it. I sent a simple text, "Can we talk?" No response. I even suggested dinner at the Golden Vine, our go-to spot downtown. Her reply? "I'm busy." No argument. No fight. Just nothing. And here's the thing about silence, it can be deafening when it's constant. By the second week, something in me began to shift. I stopped chasing her approval. I'd wake up early, hit the gym in Moretta, grab a smoothie from Nectar, and get to the office before anyone else. I stayed out late, booked more lunch meetings, even picked up some residential listings just to stay busy. Just to avoid going home. I quit initiating. Quit wondering what was on her mind. I started breathing again, like I'd been underwater and didn't even know it. At night, she'd sit on the couch with her arms folded, glued to Netflix like I didn't exist. I started sleeping in the guest bedroom. No announcement, no explanation. I just picked up my pillow one night and moved. The mattress was colder, sure. But at least it felt honest. Then came week 3, and the realization that blindsided me. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was just done. There's a strange kind of peace that comes when you finally stop begging for someone's attention. I'd hit that point, and she didn't even seem to notice. Or care. Same distant look. Same tight-lipped expression. Like being near me was a chore she didn't sign up for. I'd come home and find takeout containers on the counter. Stuff she ordered just for herself. No plate left for me. No note. Nothing. Most people think screaming matches are the worst part of a relationship. They're wrong. It's indifference that does the real damage. By the 4th week, her behavior barely registered anymore. I'd eat out most nights, sometimes at Buffalo Wild Wings off Jefferson Avenue. Other nights, I'd grab a booth at a local diner, pop in my AirPods, and listen to real estate podcasts or episodes about business mindset. Hell, I even started journaling again, getting my thoughts down, and it actually helped. Meanwhile, Megan kept up appearances online, Instagram full of curated snapshots, morning vibes, and Sunday reset captions, candles lit next to perfectly folded laundry. It looked peaceful to everyone else, but I lived with her. I knew better. There's one night I'll never forget. I came home around 9 p.m., fresh off a lease deal I'd wrapped up in Carlsbad. Megan was outside on the patio, chatting on the phone with her sister, laughing like she didn't have a care in the world. She looked stunning, but she didn't look like mine anymore. That night, I lay in the guest bed, phone in hand, flipping through my calendar, planning revenue targets for next quarter, and it hit me. She wasn't going to break the silence. She wasn't going to apologize. And for the first time in years, I was okay with that. Something in me had shifted permanently. I wasn't waiting anymore. I stopped checking her posts. Stopped hoping she'd come back around. Because the man I was becoming didn't need someone who treated him like an obligation. I was building a future, with or without her. And just to be clear, I didn't hate her. I just stopped waiting for her to love me again. That was the turning point. She thought her silence would somehow teach me a lesson. And maybe it did, but not the one she had in mind. What I learned instead was how to stand on my own 2 feet. How to stop chasing comfort and start chasing clarity. How to recognize that being physically near someone doesn't always mean you're connected. That month felt like emotional detox. Painful, yes, but necessary. But the real shift, that came later. One single phone call. One overheard conversation. That was all it took to flip the script entirely. But by the time she realized something had changed, it already had. Permanently. I wasn't the man hoping she'd turn around anymore. I had become someone she couldn't reach, even if she tried. It happened on a Tuesday. Funny how I remember that so clearly. I've always hated Tuesdays. Too far from the weekend to feel excited, and not close enough to Monday to feel driven. Just blah. But this Tuesday, broke the pattern. I had just finished my second coffee and was on my laptop, wrapping up a market report for a client in Hemet. Megan was upstairs, still doing that Cold War routine, us moving through the same space like two ghosts in a haunted house. No words. No eye contact. Nothing. That morning, she came downstairs, grabbed her keys, and walked out the front door without so much as a glance in my direction. No goodbye. No, need anything while I'm out? Just the sharp sound of the door slamming shut. And I just sat there. Not surprised. Not angry. Just empty. Because after weeks of silence, you stop seeing it as punishment. You start realizing, it's just who they are. Around 11:23 a.m., my phone lit up. Unknown number. Dallas, Texas. I almost didn't answer. Thought it might be a robocall. But something told me to pick up. Is this Jason Myers? A woman's voice asked. Yes, speaking. This is Brenda Collins from Alto Grove Commercial Investments in Dallas. Your contact, Matthew Dona, passed your name along. We're looking for a real estate partner for a large development in Austin. Do you have a moment to talk? My heartbeat shifted immediately. I stepped into the guest room, shut the door gently behind me, and said, I do. Brenda got right to it. No fluff. A multi-unit commercial center in South Austin, right next to a rapidly growing residential expansion. Funding secured. What they needed was a SoCal commercial specialist to manage the design and lease-up phase, and my name had come highly recommended. This wasn't just another listing. This was a gateway. She mentioned reviewing my last 2 retail developments in San Bernardino and Redlands. Said she was impressed by how I elevated cap rates in less than 18 months. She wanted to fly me out for a 2-day strategy session, all expenses paid, next week. While I was on the call, I didn't notice Megan had come home. But I heard the familiar creak of the hardwood floor just outside the guest room, and I could feel it, that pause in the air, that stillness when someone's eavesdropping too closely. I kept talking, not louder, not for effect, just steady, like someone who had nothing to hide. Because I didn't. I'll review the project deck and circle back by Thursday, I said. Let's aim for that Monday flight. If this goes forward, I can bring heavy leasing power to the table. I've got solid anchor connections in healthcare and finance. Brenda laughed. That's exactly the kind of confidence we're looking for. We'll talk soon, Jason. I ended the call, knowing without a doubt Megan had heard everything she needed to hear. About 10 minutes later, I came out. I was calm, grounded, unbothered. She stood in the kitchen, and for the first time in weeks, her expression had changed. She turned to me with something different in her eyes. It wasn't cold. It wasn't distant. It was softer, curious, nervous. You were on a call? She asked, casual, like we'd just chatted over coffee that morning. I nodded. Yeah, business. She bit her bottom lip. Her nervous habit sounded big. I poured myself a glass of water. It is. She shifted awkwardly, like her hands suddenly didn't know where to go. She was wearing that navy blouse, the one she only wore when she wanted to feel good without looking like she was trying too hard. Then she dropped the classic line. If you need help getting ready for your meeting or your trip or whatever, just let me know, okay? And there it was. 4 weeks of silence erased in one sentence. No apology. No accountability. Just a pivot. Because she finally realized I wasn't the man waiting for her attention anymore. I was the man with direction. And suddenly that mattered. She stayed close the rest of that day. Asked what I wanted for dinner. Offered to make her old signature, chicken pesto pasta, something I hadn't tasted in months. Asked if I needed her to steam any shirts for the flight. She even sat beside me on the couch while I watched CNBC. Said nothing, just stayed near. And here's the ironic part. A small piece of me wanted to let her. Not because I missed her, but because I wanted to see how far she'd stretch now that she sensed she was losing her grip. That night, she walked into the guest room holding one of my clean shirts, pressed and folded. I ironed this. Thought you might need it, she said quietly. I looked up, and in her eyes, I saw it. Fear. Not fear of me. Fear of being left behind. Fear of becoming irrelevant. She wasn't afraid I would leave. She was afraid I already had, in every way that mattered. She placed the shirt gently on the bed, hovered for a second, and then whispered, I miss you. Barely audible. Like it hurt to say it. And I felt something in my chest. Not love. Clarity. Because the same woman who gave me 30 days of nothing but cold indifference was now offering shirts and small gestures. Not because she finally understood how deeply she'd wounded me, but because she realized I now held something she couldn't fake. Drive. Purpose. Momentum. She didn't miss me. She missed who I had been, when I was easy to keep, easy to control. And that's when I smiled. Not outwardly. Internally. Because for the first time, I held the power. Over the next few days, it was like watching someone perform. She started cooking again. Dressed nicer. Sent me sweet little texts. Need anything from Whole Foods? Proud of you. Don't forget to send me your flight details. This, from the same woman who wouldn't speak to me 2 weeks ago. But I didn't go back to who I used to be. I didn't move back into our room. Didn't invite her on the trip. Didn't humor her small talk. I stayed cordial. Respectful. but emotionally unreachable. One evening, while we sat watching TV in near silence, Megan made a subtle move. Testing the waters. She glanced over and said, "Maybe when you're back, we could go to Goat and Vine again, just the two of us." I replied, "Maybe." And I meant it because now I could finally see things for what they were. She didn't return because she missed who I was. She came back the moment she recognized the value I carried without her. She didn't want the man she'd neglected for weeks. She feared the man I was becoming in her absence. And that told me everything I needed to know. Sometimes, the loudest statement you can make in a relationship is silence. No arguments. No defenses. No desperate explanations. Just stand up, pack your things, and keep moving forward. That's exactly what I did. The Monday following that call from Dallas, I boarded a 6:40 a.m. flight out of Ontario, bound for Austin. I didn't ask Megan for a ride. I didn't tell her when I was leaving. I scheduled an Uber the night before, folded my blazer over the guest room chair, packed my laptop, a few crisp shirts, and grabbed the cologne she gave me 2 anniversaries ago, the same one she hadn't noticed me wearing in months. I left her a short note on the kitchen counter. No emotion. No passive aggression. Just facts. Gone for business. Back Thursday night. No need to wait up. At 5 a.m., I stepped outside. The morning air was brisk and still. I paused on the porch, looking back at the house we bought together 6 years ago, once full of laughter, plans, and late-night dreams. But now it just looked like walls and windows. A shell. The life that made it home had already left. I had already left. Mentally, emotionally, soul deep. Touching down in Austin felt like stepping into a new identity. The city buzzed with potential, and so did I. I checked into a downtown Hilton. Clean, minimal, just enough space for ambition. Later that afternoon, I met Brenda and the investors at a rooftop bar overlooking Lady Bird Lake. The energy. Electric. We broke down projections, market trends, investment strategies. And the entire time, I realized something. This room, this city, these people, they saw me. They didn't see a man who brought tea when someone had cramps, or who quietly folded laundry and held back hair during stomach bugs. They saw the strategist, the closer, the builder. And Megan? She never stopped to really see that version of me. Not until it came with a title and a future. On the second day of the trip, I got a text from her. "How's the hotel? You like Austin? Let me know if you need anything. Thinking of you." I didn't respond. Not immediately. Not at all that day. At that moment, I was sitting at the bar at Perla's, shucking oysters and sipping bourbon with 2 execs from the firm. We swapped business stories and laughter, the kind that doesn't feel forced. The kind that reminds you that you have value outside your household chores and emotional labor. Later that night, back in my room, I finally replied. "All good here. I'll update you when I'm back. Hope everything's okay." Short. Neutral. Respectful, but distant. That message hit harder than any fight ever could. The night before my return flight, my phone rang. Not a text. A call. From her. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, then pressed decline. I turned the phone off, took a long shower, poured a glass of whiskey, and sat quietly in the hotel robe, just breathing. No chaos. No noise. Just me and peace. And here's the difference. The silence no longer felt like rejection. It felt like power. Because this time I chose it. When I landed back in California Thursday night, the kitchen light was on. She was there, waiting, standing by the counter with 2 plates of reheated pasta and that familiar, hesitant smile. "You hungry?" she asked. I shrugged. "Ate on the plane." She sat across from me, eyes scanning my face for something, anything, that said she still belonged in my world. "How was the trip?" she asked. "Good," I said. Productive. You seem different. I paused, met her gaze. Not cold, not angry. Just honest. I am. That answer threw her. She fidgeted, biting her lip, blinking too much, like tears threatened but hadn't landed yet. She brought up old shows we used to watch. I didn't bite. She said she missed falling asleep next to me. I nodded but didn't move my things back. Finally, she said, "You've changed." And I answered, "I had to." The next week was an awkward dance. She tried everything. Planned homemade dinners, complimented my outfits, laughed a little too loudly at my jokes. One evening, she even tried to kiss me in the hallway. I turned away. "I'm not in that place anymore, Megan." She froze. "What do you mean?" "I mean the version of me who waited around for you to care. That man's gone. The guy who walked on eggshells, tried to decode your moods, fought for scraps of affection. He moved on. You built a wall of silence between us, and now I speak that language fluently." She just stared, stunned. The woman who used to control the emotional thermostat of our home didn't have access to the dial anymore. And the silence that once made her feel powerful was now echoing back at her. A week later, Brenda called again. The firm wanted to explore expanding, either into San Antonio or back into Southern California, depending on market response. This time, I didn't mention it to Megan. She found out by glancing at the family calendar on the hallway corkboard. "You flying out again next month?" she asked over coffee one morning. "Yeah." "With who?" "Team from Dallas." She lowered her eyes, swallowed. "Can I come with you?" That's when I realized she still didn't get it. "This isn't a vacation," I said. "I know. I want to support you." I picked up my keys, looked her dead in the eye, and told her the most honest thing I'd said all year. I didn't need support when you were shutting me out. I needed a partner. And that wasn't you. She broke down right there in the kitchen. Tears spilled. Her hands shook. But I didn't yell. I didn't comfort her. I didn't deliver some grand, dramatic speech. I simply walked out the door. Because when a man finally chooses peace after drowning in chaos, there's no turning back. And in that moment, I was already gone.